Hey everyone, welcome to a late night edition, at least as we are recording it here, of a Q&A discussion. We're going to answer a couple more questions that we have inside of our Q&A survey, and we'll post a link here for any of you that want to ask any questions. So we've got like an ongoing survey for you to add whatever it is that you want to add in there. And what else? What else do we need to...
Well, we got ECCP coming up in what, like 3 weeks? 3.5?
No, we're not quite in April yet, but it's 3.5. Not quite 4 weeks though. So close. Yeah, we have ECCP, which is 5-day event coming up. We'll tell you a little bit more about that towards the end. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can always book a strategy session with us. CoachSeanSmith.com/book my call. And you can ask us anything you want. If you have questions about ECCP coming up, which is a 5-day deep dive coaching certification, it's really for embodiment of transformational coaching for any of you that want to embody your deep dive coaching at a deeper level and just really be a positive transformational agent. That would be a great program for you. So we'll tell you a little bit more. You can check it out at CoachSeanSmith.com/ECCP and read about it. Ask us questions here in this video or send in an email or whatever. And yeah, if you're watching the replay, welcome to the replay of whatever time it is that you're watching. And so we are going to talk about foundational principles today in this video. We're going to talk about how do you begin to identify foundational principles that are true to who you are. And then we also have a question related to Andrew Tate. And if you don't know who that is, he is a pretty divisive figure and potential criminal, and but also very, very influential in the world of social media. So he is certainly an influencer by the metrics of followers and I'm sure money and all that stuff. So I'll give my thoughts on that. So let's start with the foundational principles. The question is, how do you begin to identify foundational principles that are true to who you are?
So good.
Yeah, it's a big conversation, like with a bunch of variables, and it could be different for each person, right? But as I was thinking about this question earlier today, I was thinking, like, how do you, I mean, the essence of the question is, how do you identify those foundational principles?
Yeah.
And I think we have to be trained, I think, to some degree to think foundationally. Because most of our conversations, I think most of what people are teaching and most of what people are searching for are surface level, which is fine. That there's nothing wrong with surface level. We all need surface level conversations and solutions. But what I mean by surface level is these are the outcomes that I'm trying to change, right? I've got problems in my relationship. I've got problems with my health. I've got problems with my business. Like whatever the problems are, what are the solutions to the problems? And so most people are searching for surface level answers. And I think most people are giving surface level solutions. And so because of the shallowness of the way that I think most of our discussions are being had, I think we have to train ourselves or be trained how to think deeper. So what's underneath that solution, right? I'll give you an example. I'll try to come up with an example. Let's say that somebody wants to increase sales, increase conversions of marketing or anything in that context of like you want more people to convert into your business, let's say. This is a very common question that we get asked in the coaching world. How do you increase sales? How do you get high ticket offers? You know, how do you succeed more, right? Most solutions to that problem are going to be surface level in the sense that people are going to tell you how to sell. They're going to give you maybe marketing templates. They're going to give you scripts. They're going to teach you how to turn no's into yeses. They're going to teach you how to overcome objections. They're going to teach you what to do at the surface level. But if you're afraid of hearing the word no because that means you've done something wrong, or it means that you are going to be abandoned, or you get personally attached to the idea of being rejected, none of that stuff is going to work because it doesn't address your relationship to the problem. And your relationship to people saying the word no is the foundational issue here. It's not how do you learn to avoid hearing the word no, because you're going to hear the word no more than you're going to hear the word yes.
Right.
Especially if we open up the scope and talk about your messaging and your marketing and how many people are going to get emails from you and not open the emails, how many people are going to see your videos and not engage, how many people are going to say no at each step of the process. Almost everybody is going to say no. Right. At some point at each step of the process. Now you can get to the point where when you get people on the phone, you might have more yeses than nos once you get into a one-on-one conversation, but that's going to be a product of all of these other touch points, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to hear no more often than you're going to hear yes. And what we teach from a foundational standpoint is that two things. One, internal. I mean, we teach more than that, but these two things are coming to me right now. One of them being internal and one of them being strategy. The strategy is, actually, I'll do the internal first. The internal is, what's your relationship to failure? What's your relationship to rejection? What's your relationship to abandonment? What's your relationship to people saying no to you as the product, right? Mm-hmm. Your relationship to that is the foundation that we've got to focus on. Because any strategy that doesn't include a look at your relationship to the issue is overcompensation at best, and it's actually harmful at worst. Right? So that's the inner game. What's your relationship to all these things? Because as soon as you no longer have a negative or what we would call an unhealthy relationship to rejection, then people saying no won't matter to you, right? Because it won't destroy you. So you're just going to keep going. You're going to understand that no is just a part of business, and no is a part of showing up and sharing your message, and no big deal. People are just going to say no. They're going to reject you. They might even attack you as being stupid or not knowing what you're talking about. And if you can heal your relationship to that, which is mostly a relationship to feedback and relationship to visibility, when you can heal your relationship to that, you don't need to worry about the strategies all that much, because now the strategies that are designed to overcompensate for hearing a no, when you're no longer afraid of hearing a no, those strategies don't matter. Yeah. Because they're stemming from a wound and a fear that you no longer have.
Yes.
Some of those skills and the strategies still might be relevant for you to use, but they're not coming from this deep-seated fear of having your wound touched, right? Having your wound ignited and triggered, right? The strategy component of this would be that we want you to get people to make decisions. We don't want you to get people to say yes. If you try to get people to say yes, then you're actually going to get less yeses and you're going to get more no's, because that's where you're trying to direct people. But if you no longer have a negative relationship to failure and you help people make a decision where yes and no are both the right answer, the only wrong answer is, I don't know, let me think about it. When you can come from a place of advocacy and a clean relationship to whatever people say as being the right answer, then you're going to help them make a choice. And the right choice is either yes or no. Both of those are different versions of the right choice.
Yes.
But you've got to have a clean relationship to feedback and visibility and rejection and all that stuff first in order for you to do that. So that's an example of how you can take a surface level issue and dive down to the foundations, but you have to train yourself or be trained in how to think foundationally. And then obviously you have to understand what are the foundations underneath it. I think a lot of people don't know that a foundational concept is their relationship to abandonment,
right,
that is actually operating underneath the fear of no and the resistance towards sales. So you have to be taught what the foundational principles are, the belief systems, yes, whatever, traumas you're going to learn about, and values that people have, and emotional experiences from the past, like all of that stuff is the foundational recipe that's going to lead to people who are afraid of hearing the word no. That's then going to lead to people to try to get everybody to say yes. So you need to understand the foundation of human behavior in general and the foundation of human behavior with some of the specifics in what it is that you want to help people with, right? Who's your seeker? What are they dealing with? And if you know what the foundational principles are, now you can be different and distinct. You can tell them, now I know that you're constantly trying to learn how to get people to say yes. I'm going to tell you why the foundational issue is actually what you need to focus on. And if you give them a good experience of that, now you're going to give them something new. And they're much more likely to then follow you because you're speaking foundational principles, which is the only way to ever change anybody's life. You'll never change anybody's life on the surface. You have to understand foundation if you're going to ever change somebody's life. So that's an example of some of the things that we deal with in the coaching world at a foundational level. Michelle, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just love this conversation. I mean, it's going down to the root of the problem, right? So instead of trying to just fix what's at the surface, we're actually going to the foundation, which I think it's just the best place to operate from in my experience. The other thing that came up for me when you were talking is that a lot of this is not figure outable ahead of time. It's noticed after it's happened. And so it's not something, well, it's because I wasn't talking to you, Siri. It's not something that we search out and then say, oh, okay, so these are the things that I'm going to have to go through. We can have a guide, a support, a teacher, a space where somebody's already walked this path. But for my own life, and I see this with my clients as well, and our people in our community, is that it's so much about you looking and noticing as you're growing through it than it is figuring out ahead of time before you take any action.
100%. And that's one of the elements of deep dive transformational coaching is being able to flow with the go, being able to go with whatever is in front of you, however people are answering the questions, be able to explore, be able to have informed facilitation, right? Informed questioning. And on the surface, that just doesn't live. On the surface, people want a definite response. We're just taught to react. And so people find comfort in reactionary learning. If somebody says this, I say that. Yeah. If somebody says this, has a problem in this area of their life, what's the tool to use? If I want to get high ticket coaching clients, what social media platform should I use? Like, we hear all of these questions all the time. Yeah. And we just can't answer them at a surface level and create much of an impact or create a scenario where you actually understand the entrepreneurial principles that are at play. So that's the depth of foundation. And Leslie put something in here in the comment section here about, don't we need to know ourselves to know the marketing approaches that will feel best for us to use? Yes, 100%. Yeah. And part of that is why, or that's part of the reason why we always need to be in coaching conversations and deep exploration conversations with ourselves, because if we don't know ourselves, then it's impossible to know what's aligned with us. Absolutely. And if you don't know who you are, and it's not like there's a finish line where it's like, oh, okay, now I know who I am. This is a constant process of stripping away limiting beliefs and layers and all these, false identities and all that stuff. But the more that you know yourself, the more that you can recognize alignment. Here's the thing I want you to understand. If you don't know yourself, or you're not on the journey to knowing yourself and being able to trust your internal voices, everything that feels aligned to you will be misaligned. Woo! Because you're basing your feelings, you're basing alignment on how it feels to you. Mm-hmm. So if you've put a layer on that's not authentic to who you are, everything that agrees with that layer is misaligned with you, because that layer is not you.
It's not you.
So I would say most people are walking around in that scenario. They've created versions of not me so that they can interact with the world. And then they're judging what's right or wrong based on how that version of not me feels.
Right.
So everything that makes not me comfortable is not aligned with you, because not me is not you. That layer is not you. So most people are walking around like just trying to interact with layers of inauthentic identities and inauthentic beliefs and inauthentic facades. And then they wonder why they don't feel fulfilled in life, because you're wearing a costume. And your costume actually doesn't have a heart and a soul and feelings and all the things that you want. Like, it never gets to you because you've got a protective layer. Now, you put that on. We all do this. We put that on to protect ourselves from the outer world. But what that also does is it traps us inside, and we think it's protecting us, but really what it's doing is cutting us off from what's available for us as well. Like joy and happiness and fulfillment and knowing what alignment really is. So that's another foundational principle, that until we do the work to actually understand who we are and start stripping away some of these layers, virtually every decision you're going to make is going to be the wrong one, because it's being driven by a wrong version of you. And I'm just saying wrong because it's not authentically you.
Yes.
Have you read any books on this, Michelle, or listened to any podcasts on it?
Yeah, something like that. It's how I lived most of my life. And so, yeah, it's 100% relatable. And it feels so good to be on the other side of being really able to access the joy and the happiness and the fulfillment that you speak of.
Yeah. And it's it's not a quick journey. It doesn't have to take super long. Everybody's journey is going to be different.
Yeah.
But it certainly won't be a quick fix, because it is about removing layers. It's about removing the things that aren't you.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming a different version of you. It's removing the things that aren't you. It's like, it's like doing sculpture, right?
Yeah.
People that create sculptures out of big stone and rocks, they chip away everything and then leave the sculpture, right? They chip away everything that's not the sculpture. And that's kind of how we are too.
Michelangelo, I think, said that about David, like when he was carving the David. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And that vision that he had, and then he just carved away, everything that wasn't that.
And there's progress along the journey. So even in that journey, that beautifully never ending, and it's continuously meeting yourself again and again and again. And in that journey, there is progress. Like everything that you experience can bring you closer, and each step closer can open you up to something that you weren't feeling before. So it's not a switch that you just flip and it's on or off. It's a progression along the journey.
Yeah, that's a really important piece. Yeah. Enough said. I would just highlight what you said. So if you don't understand the foundational principles, you have to learn the foundational principles. Yes. And I think for any of you that want to be coaches, or just, want to continue coaching, if you're already coaches, if your certification programs don't address foundational principles, I'm going to make a super judgmental and might even sound like a negative comment here, but I believe it. You're useless as a coach, because what that means is you won't be able to understand the people that you're trying to help if you don't learn foundational principles. If you don't learn that nobody has addiction to substances as much as they have an addiction to avoiding the pain that the substances provide. You need to understand, and the substances aren't necessarily just drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. We're also addicted to a lot of behaviors that are designed to avoid certain feelings, right? So if you don't understand that, then you'll never, ever be able to help anybody with any kind of addictive behavior if all you can do is just address the substances, right? If you don't understand that people who have a negative relationship to food, they're not, the problem is not the food. The problem is what they're using the food to get away from, or the problem is what they're internal relationship is to their body or to health in general or to life or to their parents. Like there's so many below the surface things that you have to be aware of if you're actually going to help people change their behavior. One of the distinctions that we make is the difference between behavior and behavior. Behavior and behavior. If you don't understand the human underneath the behavior, you cannot help them change their behavior in any sustainable way.
No.
You can help them make short-term changes based on motivation, but if you don't understand what's going on below, no shot, zero chance at making any long-term sustainable change. So if you don't understand that stuff, learn that stuff. That's how we fill all of our content with all of our certification programs. It's what's underneath the behavior. What are the foundational principles? We have an online coaching program called BCC, and it's the introduction to all this stuff. Right. It's where you learn about beliefs and values and meta programs and traumas to a certain degree, and how the belief system creates everything in our lives and the decisions that we make and the memories that we have and the motivation of toward something versus away from something and all the different strategies that we've got going on in our brains that create all the decisions that we ever make, right? Like there's so much going on in the brain. And if you don't understand that stuff, you're not going to be a helpful coach. That's just the reality, because you won't be able to really fully change people's behavior. And then we already talked a little bit about ECCP. The next level of that would be ECCP, to give you an immersive experience of deep dive transformational coaching, where you are experiencing the work, you're watching the work be demonstrated, you're learning the work intellectually, but then you're practicing as a coach. Yes. Those are the 4 different levels of immersive learning that's required. If you want to do deep work. You cannot do deep work without an immersive experience. I've never seen it happen, ever. I've never seen it happen. But so many people are trying to be the first person to ever do it, or so many people are selling that. Like you can do really, really deep work, just get this $9 certification course, right? Or $100 NLP course. And all of a sudden you'll be this wizard. No, you won't. Right. You won't have any level of embodied certainty without an immersive experience. So for any of you that are interested in that, check out the website there. We just put it on the video, the little banner down the bottom. It's April 24th through the 28th. It's 5 days. It's all online, and it's a deep dive immersive experience. So you can explore all this stuff for yourself, but also understand a lot of these foundations. And then the more that you talk about the foundations, going back to this question, the more you'll be able to see what's aligned with you, and you'll be able to, feel the authenticity and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. All right. So I think that's it. Anything you want to add, Michelle, before we answer this Andrew Tate question?
Only 100 hours. Come to ECCP and we'll continue the conversation. Answer the Andrew Tate question.
And we do have a promo going on, actually, where you can get 2 tickets for $1,000 off the normal price. And a pay in full bonus that we have is you can have a $250 coupon to use however you want toward anything that we offer in our company, and hopefully that'll be valuable to you. Okay, so this Andrew Tate question, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. He's a very controversial figure. The question is, what are your thoughts around entrepreneurs and lifestyle coaches like Andrew Tate and the message they send to today's generation? I think we should not villainize the fruits of the issue. I believe Andrew Tate is a fruit. He is a product of an online machine. He's a product of a drug trade, and metaphorically a drug trade. Now, if you don't know about him, you can do your research. I'm not going to share a bunch of stuff because I'm not fully informed on him, but I know he shares a lot of like how to be an alpha male, how to get girls, how to win in life. I think he has like 30 cars, or at least pretends to have 30 cars. And he was just recently picked up, I think a few months ago, in a different country, I believe it was Romania, for rape charges and some vile accusations. Now, that doesn't mean he's guilty. I'm not, putting any of that stuff on him. But even without those accusations, my judgment is that he's spreading really poisonous stuff. However, he's not the problem, in my opinion. he's not the problem, because if we remove him, somebody else will just take the role. And I'm sure somebody else already has taken the seat that his incarceration has left open, right?
Yeah.
So here's the way I think about it. I always look at systems. I want to look at what's producing the problem.
Yeah.
And so in the online world, somebody like Andrew Tate can amass millions of followers and probably make millions and millions and millions of dollars because of algorithms, because the social media algorithms are preying on the quick fix solutions, and they're preying on people's insecurities, and they're preying on, now the algorithms don't have the ability to prey on insecurities. The algorithms are just automated systems, but they focus on what gets the most attention. Now, what gets the most attention is people's solutions to insecurities, people searching for what's a quick fix so I don't have to deal with this anymore. So Andrew Tate, in my opinion, unfortunately, has a lot of influence on a lot of young men and young boys out there who want to be popular with girls, and who think that getting cars and having muscles and getting laid and, you know, taking advantage of as many girls as possible and having sex with as many girls as possible is the way to be a man. So I don't believe that. That's not my definition of what masculinity is. And so according to the way I view the world, I think it's a horrible influence on what young, impressionable boys are looking for. But he's just filling a need in young, impressionable boys. And so what I want to look at is what in our society is causing these young men to think that's the answer. That's the only way that anything is actually going to change. If you agree with me and you think the problem is what these young men are being taught, there's a desire in order to produce Andrew Tate as an influencer. And if there wasn't a desire, if there wasn't something missing, then he wouldn't have a solution that anybody would be paying attention to. From an influencing perspective, I also think there's a chance that Andrew Tate is not actually the guy that has become the persona of the influencer. There's a concept called audience capture, where people become influencers by just paying attention to the algorithms, and whatever gets the most amount of attention, they start doing that more often, which is a good marketing principle. You just do what works, right? But then what happens in our world of social media, you then start to have to, it's potential, or it's possible for you to then basically become enslaved to the algorithms. And you now can only do what the algorithms have told you people care about, because if you try to change the conversation, your videos don't get watched anymore. And the algorithms have the ability to shut down anything that they think is not going to be popular. So we've got this popularity currency operating on social media, and a lot of influencers lose themselves into the persona that the social media algorithms have determined they need to uphold. I don't know that to be true for Andrew Tate specifically, but I want all of you to recognize that if you are catering to the algorithms, there's a chance that you're essentially prostituting who you are, and you're just giving whatever people will buy.
Yes.
And if all you're doing is giving whatever people will buy according to the algorithms, you can make money, you can create a community that way, but you can never be authentically happy, because that's not you. It's what we were talking about earlier with all the layers. But if those layers are now connected to the success of social media influencing, now you have to keep it all up in order to stay successful. And as soon as you take those layers off and give people a different persona, they're gonna unplug your current, like your success, basically, right? They have the ability to just make your whole channel and your whole brand useless. And so that's a big danger that I want you all to avoid from the beginning, because if you know that your brand is inauthentic, I hope you never succeed with it. Because if you do succeed with it, it's going to be harder to change and find your alignment to your authentic brand than it would be if you never succeeded, because then you don't have to worry about the audience capture thing. You don't have to worry about having a bunch of expenses and then getting them all the income taken away. And now like having to worry about that pressure and all that. So if you've been doing things that are inauthentic, I hope you've been failing at it, because it's way easier to then find your authenticity and then build a business based on that rather than continue the cycle of audience capture. So those are some high level thoughts on not just Andrew Tate specifically, but what the higher level concept here is when it comes to social media algorithms and programming and all that stuff. And for any of you that do want my thoughts on masculinity, I have a lot of resources. We have a resource page, coachshansmith.com/masculinity. I did a TEDx talk on masculinity. I've written poems, done a bunch of Facebook posts. We've got articles. We've got several videos on masculinity. So it's a page with all kinds of resources, all about masculinity, coming from what I believe to be true. And I hope it helps, right? I also just released a book on masculinity, even though it's kind of disguised as a father-daughter book. Daddy, are you proud of me? But a lot of it is really about who are we as men and fathers, and what do our daughters need from us, but not only our daughters. It's really society, but this is also heavy in the masculinity conversation.
Absolutely.
So we are going to wrap up here. Michelle, is there anything you want to say before we land this plane?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that it's the conversation that you were just having in the second half here about Andrew Tate directly connects to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's all about getting to the root, understanding the system that's at play, understanding human behavior, because from there, from that place, that's where we can begin to make like fundamental and significant change and impact in ourselves, in our communities, and in the world.
Love it. Fundamental impact and change. And it's all possible. Yeah. It's all possible to do all of it. And I hope we can support some of you, whether it's ECCP or the online course at BCC or some other way, to really do this work, because the world needs more people doing this work.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, everyone. With that, have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep commenting if you're watching the replay, especially. We'd like to know what's really landing for you. We appreciate all of you that have commented and contributed. So keep it up, and we'll come to you in another video.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.